Hey everybody, it's Dave H., creator of Dractio and Jambonz, the open source CPaaS communication platform as a service. I've done a previous video showing you how to spin up a Jambonz CPaaS on AWS in 10 minutes or less. And this is basically an update to that, because over the past few weeks I've been lucky enough to have the great help from Lorenzo Magnani from the Homer and SIP Capture project to help me integrate Homer into the Jambonz deployment. So what we have now with the terraform scripts is a really nice monitoring solution that you'll get as well when you spin up a Jambonz cluster. You'll get a monitoring server that includes Homer and the ability to pull up SIP traces and look at RTCP statistics coming from RTP Engine. And as well, there's a Grafana dashboard that will give you a lot of SIP statistics, but also some really cool metrics on the Jambonz platform itself that we'll see, as well as system level metrics, CPU utilization, and so forth on all the servers involved. So, without any further ado, let's have a look at how it works. Okay, so I'm going to build a dev test cluster using Terraform as I have in the past. You can see I'm going to build it in US East 1. I'm defining the subnets and my access keys. And I get a chance to choose the instance types. I'm going to use a T3 medium, some small stuff. Go ahead and build that. So let's kick that off. Shows what it's going to build out. I say yes, and then it's off and running. I'm going to speed this up a little bit so we don't have to wait through it. It would typically take about 5 minutes, and it's going to create a VPC, 3 instances in that VPC, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we need around that. Security groups, SNS topics, and so forth. Okay, it's done, and let's take a look at what it's created. We've got 3 instances. So as before in earlier renditions of this, there's a feature server and there's an SBC server. But we've got a 3rd instance now, which is this monitoring server. So let's take a look at that and see what we've got there. If we take that public IP and we go to port 3000, we have Grafana. So we've got a nice Grafana dashboard listening on port 3000. Login as admin, and it forces you to change the password. And then if we go look at the dashboards, there's a folder called Jambonz that's already provisioned for us. And under there are 3 dashboards. First one is called Heplify Metrics. That actually comes from Homer. So we're getting a lot of interesting SIP and RTCP stats that'll be coming off the server. There's no data yet because the system just got provisioned and hasn't had any calls. There's a dashboard called Jambonz Metrics. This is the one you'd spend a lot of time with. It's got a lot of really useful metrics to give you kind of a heads up at a glance display of how the system is doing, both in terms of SIP calls as well as media streams, webhook response times, the response times to Google TTS, as well as the percentage of cache hits and so forth. And then finally, we've got system metrics on all the servers, so all 3 servers. You can see right now we're looking at the SBC server. Top line gives you a nice kind of, again, at a glance view of how the system is doing in terms of the basic infrastructure stuff like CPU load, memory, RAM, network, and disk. And as we scroll down, there's a whole bunch of other useful stats. So what you've got out of the box is a nice Grafana dashboard monitoring all the systems, providing some really cool SIP stats from Homer, SIP Capture, and some really useful stats on the CPaaS platform itself in terms of how it's performing, number of calls it's handling at any instant, and so forth. So that's pretty useful. Okay, on that same IP address, if we go to port 9080, we have a Homer install listening there. So the SBC is sending all of the SIP traffic over HEP to Homer. We can search on it. There's no SIP calls in there yet to see. And RTP Engine on the SBC is also sending RTCP stats. So we get a lot of great information out of Homer. And then finally, on that same IP, if we go to port 1880, we've got Node-RED. And the first thing we'll want to do here is install the Jambonz plugins. So if you search for Jambonz, you'll find it easily. You can install it, and it will install all the Jambonz plugins. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I'd like to use Node-RED a lot to build applications. And if you do too, this will be great for you. It's already provisioned. It's ready to go on your server. You don't need to use Node-RED to run your applications, of course. That's the beauty of a CPaaS. You can use anything you want. But if you do, it's all there. It's all configured. It's ready to go. And again, we still have the SBC as usual on port 3001 with the provisioning portal. Again, we log in as admin there, and it forces us to change the password the first time. If I'm actually using Node-RED, then what I can do is take that IP address and port 1880 as my HTTP endpoint for my applications. And so when I create an application, I would have it point to Node-RED. Another key thing or interesting thing to know is that you can also put Nginx in front of all of these different portals, secure it, of course, with TLS, and that's what I've done on my production systems. Haven't done this here. Out of the box, it comes listening with HTTP on these various ports, but what you may want to do is install Nginx on the SBC and then have it reverse proxy to the these other HTTP endpoints.